I should be getting sound now. I hope everybody can hear me. I apologise for that. I don't know, the USB just seems to have decided it wasn't going to work too well. It's been a bit funny as USB over the past couple of days. But welcome everybody to the stream. Sorry about the problem on starting. Oh dear, I guess what I should really start and do is, well, I did check the stream before starting. Why didn't I see the audio wasn't working? I don't know. This streaming lark isn't actually as easy as it seems. And if I'm going to carve, I'm going to need the handle for the chisels as well. Of course, now my stream preview thinks I'm offline, but hey, what the heck. Right, we're going to work on the dragon's head. Where's my reference picture? It's under here somewhere. Oh dear. I am hoping later this year, early next year, to have a new studio. And when I have a new studio, I'm actually going to have space. I'm going to have room on the desk to put things. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And I can't wait. Well, I can wait because I've got no choice, but... Right, so... I'm going to start by doing is undercutting the head a little bit. In actual fact, since I'm doing the head stuff, it probably will help if I give you a little bit of a different angle on things, so that you can see a little bit what's going on from one side. Probably means if I spin this a little bit as well, you'll see that a bit better. Make it a bit harder for me, but what, you know, never mind. Now then, dragon's head is tipped that way, so the dragon, I don't know how, yeah, it's about there I think, so let's remove some of this material from here. Just do this in small slices basically. Also have to be a little bit careful because I don't want to break the head off, which is a possibility if I undercut it too much. So the reason I'm doing this is I still can't quite visualize the head. I can't quite get something that I like the look of, and I think possibly if I actually make the head a little bit less chunky looking from this side, then it might actually help me to visualize it. I'm doing a little bit of cutting around. Now then, if that's going to be the head about there, that's going to want to do that. Okay. So just giving myself a rough outline, giving myself some, if you like, guidelines to work with, and we'll go from there. Well, I hope everybody on the stream, if there is anybody on the stream, is enjoying what you're looking at. You're not sure, and you haven't read what's on the left hand side. It's relief carving. carving out of a single block of wood, but leaving a back plane on it, very much like a picture frame or something like that. So it's not a full 3D object, it's sort of 2.5 dimensions, so we don't carve the back side of the piece. And this is being carved using hand tools and knives, hand chisels I suppose, and knives, out of European lime, also known, especially in America, as basswood. Quite a good wood for carving because it's a relatively soft wood, fairly close grain and consistent density across the grain, but it is actually a relatively weak wood as well, so it can be easy to break some bits off if you're not careful. Right. No, there's a small one. So I'm just trying to create some space underneath here. I was just trying to decide whether to use a big gouge or this little tiny gouge I've got here. I decided to use a little tiny gouge. Oh, actually the whole thing about sound to start with was I'm running a fan underneath my desk because it gets quite warm in the studio, and it's quite warm here in the UK at the moment. Temperature in the studio is 24 degrees, so I'm not sure whether the microphone will be picking up the fan or not. But if it gets too much of a problem, I can turn the fan off. Generally speaking, this sort of area that I'm carving now doesn't really get carved normally on relief carving. You normally only sort of carve the front, but I think this piece particularly needs it a little bit, and also as I mentioned, it will help. It's helping me to see the sort of shape of the head that I'm trying to get to. Unfortunately my hand's in the way, isn't it, most of the time, which is a bit difficult. The mouth is very much crocodile style, quite thin. Oh, that's what I was originally intending for, but I'm not sure I'm getting that, so I probably ultimately won't. But it is the first time I've ever carved a dragon. Actually, it's the first time I've ever carved a piece this large, so I'm learning as I go along, which is proving interesting. Now then, I do need to do some carving around that nose because at the moment it's a rough cut edge, and it doesn't look very good. trying to do is establish the muzzle angle both on the bottom and the top, which I think I've just done. So I think that will be acceptable to me. Got to be really careful because I can't apply too much force, because as I mentioned, this wood is relatively weak and I am just as likely to crack the area of wood off if I push downwards. So I'm kind of using a slicing action. In fact, what I perhaps should do is get out a skew chisel, which will allow me to cut in a slightly different direction. Now, a skew chisel is named because it's actually skewed, is the end of it. As you can see here, it's not a straight chisel. It's the end is skewed, and that's actually it's also got a cutting face on both sides. So that actually makes it both left and right handed, which is quite convenient. Now this has the advantage, if you push straight down, of actually slicing rather than shaving, which is what a chisel normally does. So it goes in point first and sort of slides down, very much like a knife would do, but by being skewed you don't need to drag it like you would do a knife. But also being pointed, it means I can get into quite finer corners anyway. And once you get into fine corners like I've got here, it can be quite difficult actually to get the waste wood out. Should never try and force it out or pull it out. Should always be cut. But that, cutting it in itself can prove difficult, as this one is. Rihanna DeWitt, 2001. Good evening. Welcome to the studio this evening. Thank you for coming in. It's nice to see you again. How are you doing? I'm continuing to recover from my cold, I'm glad to say, although my voice still is slightly off, as might be obvious. I'm trying to work in a space without any space. In fact, I'm thinking what I might do is get my knife out and use that. Yes, well, it's actually amazing, isn't it? I mean, I kind of, it's what, 8:15 now, 8:20 now here in the UK, and I think something like 10 o'clock last night, it was still relatively light here, and it's kind of amazing that you don't actually realise that it is night. Of course, in winter at this time it would have been completely black outside for several hours. In fact, it fools me when I'm working, because in winter you know, it's already got dark, and I've put the office lights on way before it's time to go home, and so you've kind of got this indication that it's time that you went. But in summer, you know, because it doesn't get dark till 10 o'clock at night here in the UK, you can end up being fooled, and you can still be working at 7 o'clock at night before you look at the clock and go, oops. That's mainly because I do get absorbed in what I'm doing at work, so it can be really interesting stuff. Doesn't happen that often. I don't tend to like working longer than I should do. Yeah, over in the Netherlands, I believe. Yes, I know I guessed right last night. Oh dear. Yeah, unfortunately I have a really terrible memory. I tend to have a visual memory, so I can remember people's faces. I can go, you know, I've seen that person before. I have a problem remembering names, so you know, I can walk up to people and I know I've seen them before, but I can't remember who they are. That's probably got something to do with, you know, I don't know, being creative, or perhaps, you know, something like that. Or maybe it's got nothing at all to do with it, and it's just me. But I'm just working underneath the area here. I just do not seem to be able to. I'll tell you what I should try, and that is, I've got a little V-gouge here, which will at least get closer in than I'm doing currently. That's better. And being a V-gouge, it will get right into the edge that I was trying to get to. The angle is sufficient. V-gouges actually come in different shapes of V. I think this one is 60 degrees, but you can get sort of like 40 degrees and things like that for different purposes. Haven't quite got the angles that I want, but it'll do. Right, so I've got now undercut that. I've got a bit of undercut on the back of the head, just around here. So it's more rounded. Thank you very much. So what I'm going to try and do is just shape this snout a little bit. Yeah. This particular plane here is rough cut wood, and what I want to do is just shave that smooth, rounded off. I should be able to, with the chisels, actually create a smooth rounded end. And then I'll stop playing with this because I'm not going to be able to improve it much. I need more practice at carving faces, and I'm not going to get it too much on this dragger. Sorry, my hands are in the way, but I just can't. Sometimes you just can't get the right angles. I really want that sort of it's a bit pointed. So I'm just trying to round it off. As I say, I'm trying to get like a crocodile type snout. And I know I'm not going to be fantastically successful at this, but it's not quite long enough to do the shape I was after. But it's going to be a little bit more bird-like, I think, than crocodile-like. Okay, that's rounded off a bit, that's not so bad. Maybe comes... Oh, okay. That would be nice. And good evening, see what happens. Good evening, Chris, thank you. Yeah, that's just Chris, he's trying to be provocative. Rihanna DeWitt. I normally would say the same thing as well, but I know Chris is doing that on purpose. It's really difficult with carving to get an angle where you can see most of what I'm trying to do, Chris, but because you can see it, that's kind of the natural place where I kind of want to put my hands to carve it. Now then, I want to just drop this jaw, make this lower jaw. Do I want the lower jaw? But yeah, I kind of want it a little bit thinner, you know, across width-wise than the upper jaw. So I'm just going to shave this off a little bit. It's a bit of a slow progress actually doing this, I'm afraid. This dragon has been quite a long project. I didn't actually expect it to take this long when I started. I think I've been doing it for at least 3, maybe 4 weeks now. I admit I'm becoming starting to get itchy feet to move on to something else. So what I've got to be a little bit careful of is that I don't get too impatient with it and try and rush it. If it gets too much for me, I'll just do something else and come back to this. Oh, that reminds me. Since I was on the stream last night, I was late. Dear. I am right-handed, Rihanna DeWitt. Although I kind of, with a chisel, it's not fantastically much of a difference, because you tend to use both hands. I mean, here, for example, if I was doing this, I'm actually doing control with my left hand, and equally I can turn it over like this and be doing, driving the chisel with my left hand and controlling it with the right. So it's not such a clear cut left hand right hand right hand thing. I mean, if you were forced into right-handed all the time, or if you don't develop the skill, I guess, in both hands, you'd be kind of like trying to do this sort of weird movement to get to get into some angles. Even obviously, if I wasn't streaming, I'd be able to move this around a lot more, which doesn't work so well on stream. But even so, you'd still be twisting yourself into odd angles, so it does sort of help to develop at least fine carving capabilities of both hands. Yeah, see what happens on slow projects. Yeah, I was going to say yours is actually taking longer than my dragon, isn't it? So, although we're kind of on a par at the moment, I think. I know I'm getting close to the end. Most of the major shapes are defined. I've got some work around the hands to do. And I've got some more work to do on the wing membranes, and then undercut things like I've done on the head here on both sides, just to sort of lift the piece off. And I've got the tail to round off and decide what I want to do with. You can't see the tail, but decide what I want to do with the tail here. This is still flat at the moment. I'm not sure how I want to curve it or tilt it. But what I was what I was saying last night, I was late on the stream because I'd realised that on my works PC I have a webcam, which I very rarely use these days. So I thought I'd try plug it into the computer, and last night I could not get the thing to work. It would either I could get either the works webcam or my own webcam working, but not both. And I had to reboot the PC about half a dozen times because things just kept locking up. And eventually I gave up. But actually, after the stream last night, I got it working. Eventually, sort of went to the internet and asked it a few questions, and it came up with enough of a clue for me to get it working. So I've got something for you guys. Hello. Hi. There you go. Can't make it bigger, smaller. Well, I suppose I could crop it, but I can't make it any bigger in terms of close-up, I'm afraid. I don't have the control of that camera, that I do with the Logitech, but I've actually got a face cam now. So all those people that thought I was afraid of having a face cam, it was just the fact that I didn't have a face cam. But now I do. Well, at least until I can afford a better one. It'd be nice to get another 920, but that's going to be a while. Those things aren't cheap. Two cams indeed. Ooh, lots of hype and things. Two cams. Of course, I do understand that the instant either Junior or Felix comes into the studio, I know you wanted me to turn this camera around and to face whichever cat it is that comes in, and we'll probably lay behind the computer. So don't worry, I do have that in mind. Okay, so the shape's not too bad. It's let's see if we can just this eye section here feels a bit thick to me. I kind of like the ridge that's over the eye, but it's sort of a bit too much coming down in towards the nose here. Not very visible at the moment to you guys, and I'm not actually sure it ever will be, because it's a bit difficult to show on stream, but unfortunately sometimes some of these details, they're relatively low contrast. I can see them quite clearly here, of course, but the contrast between the pieces that you guys are looking at on camera means that they're not really showing up at all. Actually, it might be the one area of this ultimate carving that either gets pyrography applied or painting even, is to put the eye in. At least the black, well, I was going to say a black pupil. I mean, the reference image is blue. It's a real sort of sky blue pupil, but just some sort of eye in the socket here, just to give a little bit of focus to the head. So I'm just doing some shaping, reducing the eye ridge a little bit, but I'm reducing it and then making it come back by shaving the rest of the top of the head around. I quite like the fact that there's an eye ridge there, but I also like the fact that it's if it gets too long, it kind of makes the dragon look a bit evil. I kind of want the, what would be effectively like a strong eyebrow, if you can see what I mean. I think if I do some of that, I'm actually perhaps wondering if just this head is still a little bit too tall. One of the things that I do is not actually watching the stream. Oh, that's easy enough to do. Chris 3D Block, good evening. Yes, I have two cameras. Well, I've borrowed one from my works machine. All I do, Chris, is zoom out. Oh, actually, I can't. You sort of. But I'm going to zoom back in again so you can see the piece I'm working on. Dear. Laser, good evening. Yes, well, I got it working from last night with a little bit of help from the internet. It didn't actually tell me what was wrong, but it actually led me to the solutions, and it's kind of obvious when I realised it was kind of one of those face slapping moments where you go, oh, of course. I've got a HD camera here, which is the 920, which is what the main picture you're looking at, and this one's just a little 640. But of course, the two video streams need more bandwidth than a USB 2 connection. And they were both plugged into the same base hub on the main board. Effectively, by the time it gets to all the connections, they're connected to the same base port, and therefore it couldn't actually start both of them. As soon as I moved one or other of them onto a different base port, it fired up straight away. So you've now got a face cam. Not that you might decide you would rather not have it, to be honest, but if you do decide that, let me know. That sounded like a cat. Have we got... No, can't see one. I just heard what sounded like a cat stretching, and they make a little sort of, I don't know, contented noise sometimes when they do that, and it just sounded like that. So, do you prefer the face cam or would you prefer without it? I don't mind, it's just a little click to me to turn it on and off. Not a spaceship. No, unfortunately, there wasn't. I thought there was. I just heard the sort of noise that they make sometimes when they stretch, but I can't see either of them around. I am struggling with this head. Clearly I need more practice carving heads, but so that may well be the subject of another. The next carved piece will be a head of some kind. Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch it because one of the things I tend to do when I'm concentrating on something is I stick my tongue out. I end up sort of, I don't know, just sticking my tongue out somehow, out the side or whatever, and that certainly it's gonna look a bit silly on a stream. Yeah, okay. Well, you say I don't actually mind whether the face cam is on or not. It's not. I kind of figured it's important for you to see what I'm doing rather than just watching my face to talk about whatever it is I'm doing. But and what I am trying to do is carve something in the head of here. I don't know, some sort of ridge or dip in the top of the head, so you got like two sort of ridges just coming backwards. Just trying to add something to the shape. Trouble is, I'm trying to use a very tiny gouge, and I'm trying to put what is effectively a U-shaped object, the U-shaped gouge, on the top of a little hill. So you've got a U-shape on top of a hill, so that you can carve the top of the hill, and of course it just keeps wanting to slide either way. Still not happy with the nose of this thing, but I really am not. So at this point I can quite easily ruin this piece, I guess. And if I do, I do. Sorry my hands are in the way, but I can't do anything about, well, I can do something about it, but I'm just going to carry on with my hands in the way. Yeah, the tongue stuff. So far, I think it's been about 3 or 4 weeks, so we're probably something like 30 to 40 hours. Oh, I don't do the eyebrow thing when I'm, not unless I'm really, well, now I do the eyebrow thing when something's not quite going right, before I get to the toe curling and the hand curling, and once I get past that, it's things start becoming projectiles. Actually, thinking about it, I do the eyebrow thing when I'm trying to calculate or work something out. So if I've got a particularly awkward sort of, I don't know, if I was talking, what sort of thing might it be? A piece of computer code, for example. I'm just trying to work out just the exact logic or something like that. I'll start to do the eyebrow stuff, and I'll start to shape impossible objects with my hands, which have got nothing at all to do with the code, but I guess it must be some sort of metaphor for massaging the code into shape. Tongue's coming out. I'm starting to concentrate. And yeah, I'm kind of wishing, not last night, the night before, I'd been concentrating, because I ordered some chainmail rings, and I've accidentally ordered completely the wrong ones. Actually, no, not completely the wrong ones, but I've ordered the wrong size, because I wasn't reading the web page too well. I just found that out tonight, so I'm a bit annoyed with myself, and I've had to order some more. Despite the fact that, yeah, I was trying to get the head sort of tilted, if that's sort of the nose, if you like. I was trying to tilt it that way. It doesn't really look successful. It just makes it look a bit odd. Yeah. Yeah, I seem to be. I can't actually remember when I started this. I seem to have been doing. I suppose I could look back at my recordings. Actually, that might. Because it's generally been about 2 hours a night, roughly, to do this. But it does seem to be in several weeks. Streaming. Where's my recording section? There we go. Oh, that doesn't help. Of course, I I now start all my streams, of course, with the start plate, and of course, on the PC, it picks up the first frame as the thumbnail picture, and so I can't see which any of them are. Dear. Which actually reminds me, I ought to work out some of these since they're a gig or more. But I shall look at that later. Yeah, I don't think timers for really long-term projects like yours and like this is turning out to be actually serve much purpose, does it really? I mean, if it's if it's a second longer than another project, or even a couple of minutes or an hour or two, over sort of several tens of days, what's a few minutes and things like that. So, but yeah, maybe you ought to just count the weeks, Chris. I was just thinking there, lots of yeah, that's what it is. Lots of people have kept asking me, do you need patience to do all the crafts that I do? And most of the time the answer is no, not really. You don't. But I just found myself thinking there, Chris. I don't know how you have the patience to do that, night after night for the 260 whatever hours or so you've done it. We just said I don't need patience. I'm assuming it's the same for you. It's kind of the patience comes when things aren't going right, but I'm just amused at the fact that I think other people need patience to do their craft, whereas I don't need it for mine. Dear. Thinking I kind of need to define what's the front of the face from a sort of a thinner beak, perhaps. Beak. It's looking a bit like a beak, but a muzzle or whatever. Mouth. So I'm just carving it downwards a little bit. Yeah, you're right, he does. Okay, Free. It is, well, I find it quite amazing how sort of 2 hours just vanish quite so quickly because you're chatting with people. I can actually quite happily do this without talking to people as well. I mean, I have done in the past and before I started broadcasting, but it certainly does make a big difference to actually be able to talk to people at the same time. I'm kind of starting to look like that a bit better. I think I probably want to take this forehead back a little bit. It still seems somewhat strong. I mean, if anybody actually knows what a dragon actually looks like, then feel free to offer advice. Though if you do, I may ask for proof of experience. And these are this from the McCaffrey stories are, well, relatively speaking, are friendly dragons. You know, they're not out to eat people or anything like that. So, and I imagine they can get quite fearsome if they wanted to do so. But I don't know. I think it'd be really cool to meet one of these things. They're supposed to be telepathic as well. In some ways, I kind of love the. Okay, Laser. Good. Well, have a good rest. I assume. Well, hopefully, if you've been up since 3 AM, you're going to get some rest. So have a good rest, and thank you for dropping in. It's been great. You two have fun. I've not actually ever seen that. That's a film, isn't it, Chris? I've not actually ever seen that. Actually don't watch a lot of films or anything at all, to be honest, a great deal these days. I kind of wonder what it would. I mean, these dragons are said, well, they're telepathic with their rider, but I kind of wonder what it'd be like to actually be able to sort of telepathically communicate, even with sort of some of the domestic animals, as well as people and things. I don't necessarily mean read minds. Actually, sort of consciously have to, I don't know, make some sort of telepathic connection with somebody to be able to talk to them over any sort of distance. This is going a bit dolphin-like. Actually, that might be a cool thing to do next as a carving. Block of wood like this, maybe a bit thicker, and actually 3D carve, full 3D carve it with a base of a dolphin, maybe leaping out of the water, or perhaps two of them. That might be an interesting thing to do. And as long as I think about it before I actually draw the thing out, I can maybe avoid some of the sharp angles and awkward places that I've had to carve on this one. I'm starting to like that head a bit more. I don't know. can't quite work out if it looks like the head of a dragon. I think I possibly want want to thin the neck a little bit more. It kind of looks a bit of a small head for such a wide body as well. Maybe what I'll do is trim a little bit of this so it's not quite as thick a body. Although I mean there'll be some fairly hefty muscles for the wing muscles around here, so I think I might have to do this one a little bit because this looks a bit of a different angle to that, but we'll see. What I was doing was just thinning this neck a little bit. I'm getting some quite nice weather in the UK at the moment. I've been starting to think whether I ought to start charging the batteries for my helicopters and do some flying. Unfortunately, not really an easy thing to broadcast on Twitch though, so you guys wouldn't get to see it, I don't think. Which reminds me, that one we actually built on stream, I must try resetting that one and trying to trim it out again. I was not particularly well pleased with it the first time. I was half convinced that the motor controllers aren't synchronized properly, because they do start up, they don't all start up together, which is what I'd expect. And I think maybe that was part of the trimming problem that I had with it. The only thing I can think of is it needs a full reset, and the whole process, the whole trimming process started again. 84 guy, good evening, welcome to the stream. Got a face cam now. Sorry, I'm just watching the stream preview. I've actually, that camera's not in too bad a position, is it? So that when my head's down like this, you at least see something approximating my face rather than the bald spot on the top. Yeah, I couldn't get on working yesterday, but realised it was to do with the bandwidth on the USB line. Both cameras are plugged into the same line, and therefore only one of them could start up, because the cameras reserve bandwidth on the USB connection that they're on, and both of them couldn't reserve enough bandwidth for themselves, so one would work but not the other. Once I realised what it was and put them on different connections, it worked perfectly. Although this old Microsoft camera here did prove to be awkward in that it wouldn't tell me which port it was connected to. I got some rings delivered as well today, Eddie, so I can finish off my wife's next couple of bracelets and things that she wants. Only problem is I accidentally ordered the wrong size. I wasn't watching what I did when I clicked on the web page to place the order, and I got 1/4 inch rings instead of 5/32, which is somewhat of a slightly different size. So now I'm going to have to think of something I can do with 1/4 inch 18 gauge, I think, or 19 gauge rings. Right, I'm just tidying up around here, but just thinning that neck down a little bit. By doing that, it kind of elongates the head a bit and doesn't make it look quite as small. The dragon's got a ridge on the back of its neck, on the back of its head here. I'm not actually sure that's particularly successful in terms of the way it looks. I may do something about that. Yeah, about the same. Especially now that I've had to reorder some. Half Persian, okay. Might have. The Persians look better with different coloured rings, don't they? So I'm just thinking. I can't remember if I've got if I ordered 2 colours or 1. I ordered orange, I know, because she wanted orange to go with the bracelet. She wanted a necklace, so I ordered a lot of those. I shall see. This muzzle is still too straight. It looks like somebody's taken the chisel and just goes slap bang down there, which of course is precisely what I did do when I made this. Don't quite look natural. It looks sort of too squared off, and this is one of those situations where I can't quite get the angle I'm after. I really just need to lose the smooth off the angle between them. Oh, that's not going to do what I want. Oh, it would do what I want, but when you carve the wood, if you carve in certain directions, you get a really smooth shiny surface. If you carve in crosswise to that, it gets sort of a bit like a matte surface, fairly smooth but still like a matte surface. And if you carve in completely the wrong direction, it probably doesn't work at all. And what just around here, what I'm getting is, by carving straight down, I've got a matte surface where the rest is shiny. I kind of like to have the shiny surface if I can, because then I don't actually need to sand. and of course just carving vertically downwards then just gave me a matte surface. If I sand a piece, I lose the shininess altogether. I just end up with a matte surface. So I suppose I could burnish it, take another piece of wood, or it might work with sort of something like a chamois leather, and just rub all of the piece quite hard. But the danger of breaking bits off would be quite strong. Just trying to lose that squared off look it's got at the moment. Yeah, maybe just try it. Sorry, Eddie. Maybe just try it and see how it comes out. That doesn't look too bad now. Gonna do a little bit about the head. Let's see if I can undercut this a little bit around here. I'm going to undercut it a little bit more so that I don't have quite the same bulk. I don't have to have a sort of a perfect, I don't actually have to have a perfect match to the shape on the top surface. It's just kind of an impression. So as long as it sort of looks like the same shape, if you were to sort of look down on it, you'll sort of see that. Your brain will fill in the details. Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. Yes, I was. I think I said something right at the start, but during the day, I have the iPad at the side of my work desk, or on my work desk. So I can, generally speaking, if I'm not really concentrating on something, to the exclusion of all else, I'll put a stream on of some kind if there's something interesting going on, like you broadcasting, Adi. I think I had gluten-free game on as well today, and I can actually, well, I can't, well, most of the time I can't actually interact with you. I just don't have the time to pick up the iPad and start typing and what have you whilst I'm working. But I can watch and listen and add the occasional comment. But I quite often work a lot better with some sort of sound going on in the background. If it's too quiet, I hear every noise, and it's sort of distracting. But I, daft as it sounds, it can't be a conversation. So if although I know you were speaking, that's more like a television. Even if there's a conversation on a television, it's a television. Two people in person, I find extremely distracting, and I can't work with people talking around me like that. So, but generally speaking, unless I really have got something really awkward to concentrate on, which is the only time I actually need perfect silence, I generally prefer to have some sort of noise going. It does seem to have been really quiet for a long time with viewers. Since about Thursday. I was really surprised at the weekend that it was really, really, really quiet. Yeah, I've had weekends for me with quite a lot of viewers. 20 or 30, 20 viewers on. This weekend I think it was about 4. Tillybug, good evening. Welcome to the studio. Yes, a face cam. It's borrowed from my works machine, so it may or may not be here every time, but for the moment I've got it working, so you get to see it. When you see me looking off that way, I've got a big monitor there, so I can read chat a lot easier on that monitor than I can on the one in front of me, because these glasses are quite a short focal length, and I've got it on both monitors. But I keep thinking about maybe getting I do have a magnifier, but carving with a magnifier is quite awkward. And these glasses aren't, well, these glasses are better if they're a new prescription, so. But I keep thinking about maybe getting one of those optivisors, with the flip up sort of front with the lenses on the front, just to do this sort of thing with, so I get a close up view. Don't know if anybody's ever tried one of those, and if you have, what do you think about them? Because they're not fantastically cheap either. And optically, you're better off having glasses that are actually specially made with sort of magnifying loops on them, but they're expensive. Let's see what we can do now about shaping the head. I'm not fantastically great 100%. I like this, but it's I do like the shape of the head now that I've undercut it on both sides. So if I'm looking like I'm here to one side, I sort of see a head shape. So what I'm going to do now is just smooth off the head a bit. I'm going to make an assumption that I've got three stripes going backwards in terms of the ridges. And just see if I can carve something like that into the top of the head here. I think what I might do is this ridge this thing at the back here, I'll incorporate. It was meant to be the centre ridge, but I think what I'll do is assume it's the side ridge and carve it as such. Little tiny slivers of wood coming off here. Wonder how many people drop into the stream expecting to see chips of wood flying all over the place. And I know when we're doing all this sort of fine carving like this, I mean, you can see the amount of debris that's here. That's it. We've been going now almost an hour and a quarter, and there's not even a handful of chips compared to the start, when of course we were doing all the clearing the background where there was sort of half a bin full. Yeah, kind of understand that. I mean, that's because of the magnification. It's a bit like taking a camera and spinning it too fast. It makes you feel sick. Same sort of idea, I guess. Sorry, excuse me a second. I've just got I'm just lucky. I've got a ring here which actually is misshapen. It's got a Greek key design, and it's just bent slightly. Just notice it's bent slightly. Where was it now? Just one of these had opened out somewhat. Yeah, this one. You probably can't see it, but I just happened to notice it on my finger, and it was distracting me. It's instead of going at right angles, it's bent. That's not good. My wedding ring, which is this one, doesn't fit anymore, so that's a replacement wedding ring. Yeah, it's not so much about them being too, or things like this being too small, lady. I mean, I can see 332nd or 364s quite easily. My electronic circuits sort of two resistance things like 2mm by 1mm stuff. I can see clearly with the glasses. Without them I can't see them, but it's more just about quite often I do it with the airbrushes, for example. Let me just pull one out. Where I want to look at the needle, which if I just take the nozzle cap off, let me just give you an indication. See if you can. He's doing this right in as far as it will go and focus it. I'll try and focus it. Alright, it will help if I actually drag the slider. There you go. That's the needle. Okay. Keep my hands out the so that's that. There we go. That's the needle, and sometimes you want to look at that to see if the very tip of it's bent or it's got something on the end of it, something like that. And now as you can, if you now look, you might not be able to see. I'm now closest I can see that now is probably about 8 inches. If I bring it any closer, I just literally I lose focus even with these glasses on. And so that's looking at the needle, and if I want it to do some very fine spray, I want to get about, as you can probably see, I want to get about 4 inches away from it to be able to see the tip and the paper that I'm working on. But I can't see the needle at all at this distance. It's just a blur. Whereas with something like an Optivisor, I can come back, but still at this distance where my eyes and the glasses will focus, but I actually can still see that tip at the sort of position I want to see it at, if that makes sense. Let me just put that cap back on there, because I don't want to stab myself with that, and I don't want to damage it either. Let's zoom that back out. and pull it back into focus. Yeah, I mean the rings. No, I don't need it for rings. I mean occasionally, I suppose if you it might be quite useful for closing rings just to see the gap, but not particularly. I wasn't thinking of it specifically for that. It was for getting this sort of close-up view on things without actually having to be that close to it. Right, so let me put another head ridge in there. Normally, as I mentioned before, you don't really side carve on relief. So the sort of thing I'm carving here into the head, you don't often do that. It really is all about the front face most of the time, and generally speaking, the front face and if you like down to this. I was going to say down to the baseboard, but it's not even really down to the. I suppose it really depends on the shape more than anything. But it's a relatively unusual thing to sort of carve much of the side of an object. Right, I need to. This is one of those situations where I kind of wish this was in a carver's vise, but they're not great for relief carving out carver's vices. What a carver's vise is really is it's not really a vise at all. It's kind of a ball joint onto which. With a plate on top which you screw into the base of the piece that you're carving, and then you clamp the ball joint to the desk, which allows you then to move the piece into any sort of direction you like, a bit like a ball head on a tripod. But with relief carving, generally speaking, the back plate is so thin you can't actually get screws into it, not without potentially splitting the wood or driving them all the way through. So you don't usually use them for relief carving, and especially since all the carving's on the top. But this is just one of those situations where it could have been quite useful, but I kind of would love to get a carver's vise for and actually to try and do some 3D carving. It's a bit awkward to try and do them sometimes without that sort of stabilisation. But unfortunately, for some reason, well, I was going to say for some reason, for the reason that they probably don't sell a great deal of them, they're not that cheap. Right, so let's see if I can clean a bit of wood out there. I think the next thing for carving, next tool I buy for carving is actually just going to be another handle. Keep swapping between them that many times. I surprised myself the other night. I've actually Oh, you think you're back in for a bit? Okay. Actually, I was just you didn't trigger the thought, but it is quite appropriate. Free. Last night I actually fired up Minecraft again for the first time in several months. Actually, sort of never actually got as far as playing it, but updated it and updated the world, and then I ran out of time. But I kind of felt a bit motivated to actually play Minecraft again. I kind of go in cycles with games. I play one for a long time, then move on to something else and what have you. But yeah, we're streaming now. I'm probably not going to. I don't really want to play games on stream. I could do, but I enjoy the physical crafts more. But now that this is the only position that I can actually do play some of the games in, because I like with the Euro Truck Simulator, for example, I've got a steering wheel. It sits here. If I do the train simulator, I've got the rail controller and it sits here. And those things are so big, they're a bit of a pain in the neck to keep moving out. If I wanted to stream carving or whatever as a craft and then play a game afterwards, I just can't be bothered shifting the thing in and out. But Minecraft at least doesn't, just a keyboard and a mouse. So. Although given that I actually use a trackball these days, that's proving interesting. Having to relearn sort of the controls. You get so used to just doing things with a mouse, and I'm not going to give in. Partly because I need a new mouse, but the one I've got, so it's a vertical mouse, so you don't get you hold the mouse with your hand vertically. But after about 6 months of those things, the switches for some reason start to bounce, which is really irritating. So you end up double clicking everything. So I kind of need a new one, but they're a bit of a pricey mouse, and kind of got used to using the trackball for everything else, which I quite enjoy because it doesn't take up any desk space like a mouse does. You can quite easily hold a trackball on your knee or something like that, which of course you can't do with a mouse. The only thing I miss really is the middle click. You mean you've forgotten your password, or they've just reset it on you, Free? Oh, yeah. I can't actually work out how that would work. Actually, I don't know. I can try it because I've got a Cintiq screen, so I can try. That's an interesting. I've actually got a graphics tablet around here as well. That's an interesting one actually, because you'd just be moving the mouse left and forward. I guess it doesn't really matter where it would be on. Well, it would have to be within the screen window. I don't know, I might have to try that just to see what it's like. I've actually half got I think I've seen it on stream before, but I've half got a joystick here, and some buttons to actually for Minecraft, because if I play it for long enough with any game that's WASD, my fingers and wrists on my left hand really hurt, So I can, with a bit of programming, and convert a joystick into a WASD movement, and these and 6 keys here, which is about all I use in Minecraft most of the time, set up so I've got my fingers on them and I can just click. I just have not got around to finishing the case, so the lid will go on, but that's makes it you know, would be quite useful, because I can then sit back and I'm showing that camera now when I could be showing this camera. Got a choice of cameras. Oh, okay, using it in mouse mode, yeah. But yeah, simple Arduino, but does this sort of job quite well. Could even program it, you see, as you push forward. If you push far enough forward, you run. So you walk and then run. Anyway, I'll get round to finishing that one of these days. Well, of course, with me programming, I can program whatever I like into the joystick. It's it doesn't act like a mouse. It acts like a keyboard. That's what that's set up to do. What I guess I should really do here is unclamp this, and what I really should do is do what I really should do, which is unclamp it and look at it the right way up. Just sort of carving something into the head here. This is about the untidiest bit of the whole piece. I'm doing the tongue thing. Yeah, it doesn't look as good when you look at it from that angle, but when you look at it from that sort of angle, it's a lot better. I need to remove a bit of material from around there as well, I think. See if I can get in there with a knife. Ideally what I want to do here is round these head ridges off. Carving it completely the wrong angle. Yeah, this bit of the forehead here looks terrible when you look down on it. Yeah, there's not a lot I can do. By which I mean I don't have the skill to do a lot about it. It just looks really ugly, but only if you look at it from that particular angle. Assume you're streaming tonight, Free? It's Tuesday today, isn't it? Yeah. Or are you taking a night off? Yeah, I'll have to do a fair bit of work to tidy up all the rough wood. We'll think about that later. I think I'm going to accept that head as it is for, at least for the moment. Okay, fair enough. Well, it means I don't have to watch 4 streams at once. I only need to watch 2 or 3. Yeah, I think we'll leave the head as it is for the moment. Okay, so let's see if I can alter this a little bit just around here. I'll do a bit more. That one's clamping down again. Oh, I have unlimited bandwidth, 3D bloke, and I'm not capped. I'm not. There's no throttling on it either. So I don't have a bandwidth problem. I mean, when you're pulling down 3 or 4 HD streams at the same time, dear. It's a good job bandwidth isn't a problem. I'm actually lucky. I don't pay for my internet connection. The business pays for it, so have a BT Infinity connection for which gives me about 60 meg. So I'm just slimming this down a little bit. It just seemed a bit wide. I say there's going to be some, well, I'd imagine there to be quite a few strong muscles in this area. It would kind of be nice to have shaped this back off a bit. Actually, I might try and do a bit of that. A little bit almost a forced perspective thing here, I think. Well, carve a gentle slope and then round it off really quickly. Actually, I am actually wondering whether to actually carve that membrane down a little bit further. Actually, that seems like a really good idea. Just against the body here. Just alter where the membrane joins the body to be a little bit low. It's a relatively low on this side, so we'll see if we can sort of match it. See if I can find the right angle to carve this wood at as well. You can almost guarantee that if there's an easy direction and a hard direction, it's always the hard direction. If you join the same company, free, yeah. It's just an employee benefit, shall we say. It's not it's not for the job or anything like that. They actually provide me with a second one for the job. So I have a backup connection, you might say. Unfortunately, the one they give me an Infinity for a personal line, but they give me an 8 meg for the business line. So I just set the network up here so that the 8 meg works as a backup, and everything else is on the Infinity. Right, at one time that probably would have been a really good skill. These days they have sort of outside caterers that do that sort of thing. in the office. Like Costa coffee and things like that. Anyway, I thought you didn't want to work back in corporate world free. I thought you were quite happy being a starving artist. Yeah, for me it'd have to be Earl Grey tea as well. I prefer that to the standard English breakfast tea. Tea Earl Grey hot, yeah. That is actually why I first tried it. Kind of that long ago that I sort of really, other than the usual, your Darjeeling and what's the other one? I can't remember. Which everybody sort of knows about. There's so many there's thousands of actual teas, various blends, and that literally was the reason why I tried it, and I liked it. I actually like that tea, so. But that was the original reason why I tried Earl Grey tea. I can even drink it black as well, or without milk and without sugar. Well, I do drink it without sugar anyway, but. And of course, what I've probably just done there is, really upset some tea purists with the idea that I might actually put milk in tea. All the tortures and heinous things to do. That needs to just go in a little bit. That's his hips, just there. I just want a little indentation. That's it. Just to give the visual clue that that's kind of the start of the leg and the end of the body. That's strange. I mean, a lot of people don't. I mean, Earl Grey actually is quite a mild tea compared with sort of the standard breakfast or English tea. But a lot of people have a similar sort of reactions. But they do that with any sorts of tea. But Tetley or PGs, Yorkshire tea. They all have the same sort of blend. And drink those quite happily as well. But it's just the preference. My wife's been drinking chamomile tea for the past couple of weeks, mixed with honey and lemon. So Greek honey and actual fresh lemons in the tea to help a cold and sore throat. I don't mind chamomile tea, but I'm not particularly into sort of fruit teas and things like that, which a lot of people are. There's some weird ones like lavender tea and stuff. Can't remember it's chamomile or lavender. I think is supposed to make you sleepy. So it's supposed to be a good tea to have before you go to bed. Right, what are we at now? 10 o'clock. Might go on a bit longer. Mind you, I don't want to overexcite you guys with actually having a face cam for the first time, you know. Maybe I should sort of ration it out a little bit. I wonder if actually Junior is a bit upset with me, because he's not actually been into either the office or the studio here since we got back from holiday. He didn't seem to be bothered, you know. He's quite a laid-back cat. As I mentioned yesterday, when we put him in a basket to go to the vets or anything, he just sits down, curls his paws under. She's a relaxed cat, and just sits there quietly. And you know, he's quite happy to come up to me outside to be stroked and things. So, but he's not come up into the office just recently. He does have a habit of dropping in while I'm at work and sitting on my knee for an hour. And of course, you guys have noticed, will have known that he comes into the studio as well, or did on a regular basis. Of course, it could just be the hot weather that we're having at the moment, and he's finding it better outside. Now that looks a bit better to me. It doesn't look quite as wide. Tillybug, have a good night. Thank you for being here. It's been fun having you around. Hopefully we'll see you again. Yeah, I've heard that as well. Mint tea. Not quite sure. Well, I mean, the kind of there's all sorts of claims, isn't there, for teas and infusions and things. So can't see how it would absorb the fat though. It would have to change it into something which is non-digestible for that to happen, and I just can't see what chemical reaction that would be. kind of like, well, I kind of find it fun to see some of these. I won't say miracle cures, but things like some of these, things like I'm trying to think of something like now. I don't know, some of these diets and things like that that people have, and the way in which they, sort of eat nothing but cabbages for 6 months, and you'll, it's a magical diet. You'll lose weight, and it's kind of like eat anything, just the one thing for 6 months, you'll lose weight. And I just find it so interesting to see how all these sort of fads things go on. Bubbles the Monkey, good evening. Welcome to the studio. Yes, I've borrowed my work's camera. I finally remembered that I actually had it, because it normally sits on top of one of the work's monitors, and I kind of forgot it was there, and I don't use it very much for work these days, so I thought I'd try it, and messed about with it last night, couldn't get it working, and then got it working tonight. So it's a second camera. You get to see me. Whether that's an advantage or not, you can decide. But right, I've slimmed that down a bit. I've just shaped that neck a little bit more. I think I actually want to keep dotting around and just doing odd things. I just want to. That's just a little bit, not quite how I wanted it. Just around there. This is sort of a neck ridge. More like sort of a protruding backbone than anything. Actually, that was the other thing I wanted to do. You just need to smooth it off around here as well. It might actually be a bit too prominent, is this? Before we finish, not tonight, but before we finish this carving, I may reduce the height of this backbone a little bit. How's your artwork going at the moment, Bubbles the Monkey? Because I think you were doing a painting by numbers the other night, and also, of course, you're still doing your fuse beads image of that ginormous character. I love that glowing sword on it. Looking forward to seeing how that turns out in beads. I was watching some video the other night of watercolour artist doing a landscape, and I find it so funny how they just slap water, slap a load of water on and a bit of paint and move it around a bit, and magically they get this landscape out of it. You think, if I tried that, I'd just end up with papier-mâché. Yeah, no, you said the other day, Bubbles, about the health thing. So, but I was hoping you were feeling a lot better by now. One of the things I'll ultimately have to decide here is, do I want the neck to be really, really smooth? Or do I want it to be a little bit sort of chunky-ish? A few planes on there, as though you've got some really thick muscles that are, causing bulges, little bulges everywhere. There's not a lot of difference, of course. It's relatively smooth anyway, but I can smooth it off a heck of a lot more. Right. So we've got a head. Could do the tail. could start to do some more work on. In fact, I do need to do some more work here, if nothing else, on the wing membranes, because I've left them stood proud. I want to dish the wing membranes down like that, and I shouldn't do that near a chisel because I scratched myself. Didn't cut my skin, but the problem is this chisel's a bit blunt. I didn't want to dish the wing membranes down though until I got all the bones roughly in how I wanted them, which I now have. So okay, I'm glad you're feeling a lot. You're feeling a lot better there, Bubbles the Monkey. You know, I'm looking at the time, and I'm also looking at the fact that I've got a container of celery sticks, which I want to eat, but I'm not going to eat these on stream. I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking, do I want to carve or do I want to eat celery sticks? Carving is winning for the moment, but I don't know for how much longer. Now, if it was a raw cauliflower, then I'm not sure that the stream would win. I'm probably going to appall at least Bubbles the Monkey at the moment, because I'm going to say I prefer something like a raw cauliflower to chocolate. I know it sounds impossible, Bubbles the Monkey, but now, just down this wing bone here, there's a ridge on the outside that shouldn't be there. This chisel won't sharpen it. Oh, you like chocolate as well, do you, Eddie? I didn't say I didn't like chocolate. I just, if you give me a choice, most of the time, I'd pick the raw vegetable. I know a lot of people can't understand that, but in fact, actually, usually given a choice, I'd prefer the raw vegetable to the cooked one. I like things like garden peas as well, raw garden peas and broad beans. At least I can quite happily sit down and and eat sort of a full head of cauliflower and not have to worry about calories. In fact, in summer, actually, that's one of the things we quite often, or I'll quite often do, is make a vegetable salad. So you take things like carrots and onions and cauliflower, broccoli. What else would it be? Maybe something like some prawns and all sorts of ingredients like that, what you might call raw ingredients, and actually make sort of a tossed salad out of them. So there'd be no, well, there might be some tomatoes in there, but there'd be no lettuce or anything like that. Make a great big, literally a great big bowl of that, and the two of us will sit down and literally there'll be sort of big dinner plates, and you know, we pile the dinner plates high, and we'll just sit down in the sun and eat a whole plate full of vegetable salad. Of course, it'll have a nice olive oil and vinegar dressing on it, but so it's not completely calorie free. The common lettuce I don't particularly care much for. They're all right, but I actually prefer some of the more exotic lettuces, shall we say. I'm trying to think of some of them now, but more leaf-based than you know, the small leaf type things, rather than the great big sort of lettuce. Iceberg type lettuce stuff I prefer. My wife actually hates cucumber, so we very rarely have cucumber around the place. If we get a ready mixed salad from anywhere, she'll actually go through it and pull all the pieces of cucumber out before she'll even eat it, or even put a spoon in it. Even at things like McDonald's, she'll lift the bun out and steamed vegetables nice though. Yeah, I kind of agree with steamed vegetables. I like them slightly undercooked, so I always used to actually steam vegetables. Because when I was at school, vegetables were always boiled. I won't say boiled to within an inch of their life. It was probably boiled to within a mile after the end of their life. So back then I never was fantastically interested in vegetables. It was only when I learned how to cook them sort of properly, if you like, and they were slightly, what do you call it, al dente, is it? Or basically slightly undercooked. I actually discovered that they actually were nice. I think school kitchens had a lot to do with people being completely against vegetables. And it's got a lot to do with me being completely against semolina pudding as well, but My wife claims she can burn water. I tend to do most of the cooking. My mother wasn't actually that bad. Well, I won't say she wasn't actually that bad because it sounds like a comparison. She wasn't bad at all at the cooking stuff. I'm actually kind of guessing she must have taught me how to cook because I don't actually ever recall learning anywhere, so it must have been sort of somehow by osmosis or something, but I don't reckon I'm too bad a cook. There again, I said, which I live by myself in my own house for, I don't know, it's been about 5 or 6 years, so at least that. So of course I kind of had to cook. You can only have some, well, I was about to say you can only have so many takeaways, but that's actually not true. See, something I don't normally like to do, and that here with this chisel, and that is I'm kind of scraping the wood. And I don't normally like to scrape with a chisel because it actually bends and it sort of blunts it basically. Because what it does is the very fine edge, it tends to buckle it over, and then it effectively becomes blunt. But the wood is in this area. If I try and carve it in any other direction, I lose that nice shiny stuff that I mentioned earlier. I like to keep if I can. So all it means is I just have to sharpen the chisel more often. But it's you know, chisels aren't really designed for scraping. You can actually get proper tools to do that, and usually they don't have a very fine point like this. They'll be square like the edge of this chisel. The back of this chisel is here, but they'll have really strong right angled edges on, so that the edges are sort of sharp, if you know what I mean. It's a really sharp right angle, and of course you scrape then on that edge, but yeah, no, I kind of like cooking, but there's many a time when I just can't really be bothered. Chris, AD Fall Guy, sort of microwavable meals and things like that are relatively wonderful inventions. We're quite lucky for takeaways around here. We get the area I am in. We've got our favourite pizza shop, and it's just a local one. It's not a big chain, which we've now been going to for must be going on for close to 30 years. But we also have we've got a Chinese, Indian, Mexican, then the Greek takeaway, but there's a Turkish one. There's a Greek restaurant, but not a Greek takeaway. I'm trying to think what the other one is. Maybe I'm thinking turkey service. We've got quite a choice of that, as well as the usual sort of McDonald's and KFC. Although those actually are a little bit further away. I've had enough. I think that will do for tonight. So I'll put some stuff away. What time is it now? It's 10:30. I think that'll do for this evening. Got the head done, which is the main thing I wanted to achieve tonight. Just because it was scaring me, shall we say. So it's I'd put it off for long enough. I'm not 100% happy with the head, but I don't think there's much more I can do with it without completely spoiling it. It does need tidying up, which we'll get to at the end, where all sort of the rough fibres around the place, like in here and around the other pieces, will need to be tidied up. But that's kind of the very last thing that we do on most of the carving. So right. Well, I've got the celery sticks there to one side. I've got a tub of cold, yeah, it still is cold, pineapple juice there to finish, and oops, put this other chisel away as well. So I shall sit back after this, and once I've tidied up, I shall sit back and watch some Train Simulator. I think Matt's on. And just relax before it's time to go to bed. I've got to be up early tomorrow. I've actually got to go into an office. I can't work from home tomorrow, so I've got an hour's bus ride, and then in the office all day, and an hour's bus ride home. Makes a change though. Right, well, let's zoom this camera out a bit, and you can have a little bit of a look at what the piece sort of looks like. You can see there's a square bit of edge around here. This will need to be shaved off to the background before we finish. But so I've got a little bit of detail on the dragon's head. We've altered the body shape a little bit just around here. Actually made it a bit deeper, which I think makes I might round the body off slightly more tomorrow, but I think it looks a lot better now. They're about the same size on both sides, and then we've got work to do in making a dish shape on the wing membranes, and then it's basically undercut everything and make sure the background's all nice and smooth. So we're getting closer to finishing it. I'm not sure I can really do anything much about the eye. I might see if, with a knife, I might be able to sort of put an eye shape into there, or I may just do a little bit of pyrography just to create a dark eye. We'll see about that. But there we are. I think it's a good job I don't have any kids. Otherwise, I highly suspect that with all the crafts that I do, I'd never get away from a scout hut. I don't think. But there we go. What's this? Fried chicken and mashed potatoes. Fried chicken and chips, maybe. I don't understand that. Yeah. The thing about KFC, I'm going to say the thing about KFC, I don't actually mind a KFC, but I like their spicy. They don't do it around a spicy chicken. They do a spicy chicken up in Newcastle. I did it as a special for about 3-4 months around here, and I actually love that stuff because I quite like that sort of spice stuff. And I'd be eating it every week if they did it, but they sort of said Yorkshire people don't like spicy chicken and refused. Oh, we've dropped 6 frames. And sort of refused to sell it around here. All right. I think you might finish Hobby's first 3D block.